Okay, welcome everybody to the February 27th Planning Commission Board of Adjustment for Hubbard County. We'll start the meeting with me reading the meeting procedure, so if you'll just be patient as I go through this, and that'll give us an outline of what to expect tonight. All persons in attendance at Planning Commission Board of Adjustment meetings are expected to comply with the following meeting procedure. Thank you in advance for helping make this a manageable meeting. Copies of agenda item materials are available for public viewing on the table located at the back of the meeting room. These materials are not to leave the table so that others in attendance may also view them. Please turn phones to vibrate off during the meeting and conduct any sidebar conversations outside the meeting room. Interruption or other interference with orderly conduct of the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment meeting will not be allowed. Defamatory or abusive remarks are always out of order. Disruptive persons will be removed from the meeting. The chair may terminate a speaker's privilege of address if, after being called to order, the speaker persists in improper conduct or remarks. Written material concerning agenda items must be submitted to Environmental Services by 3:30 p.m. on the Wednesday immediately prior to the meeting date. Written materials will not be accepted after this deadline or at the meeting because the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment will not have sufficient time to review them prior to the meeting. Such material must state the agenda item for which it is being submitted and the name and address of the submitting party. Planning Commission business is conducted first, followed by Board of Adjustment business. The chair will call the meeting to order and explain the meeting procedure. The chair will read each agenda item into the record and ask the applicants to come forward to the presenters table, state his or her names and addresses for the record, and explain his, her, or their request. The Planning Commission Board of Adjustment will then discuss the agenda item with the applicant. The chair will then ask for public comment on the agenda item. To facilitate an orderly, efficient meeting, there is a 3-minute speaking time limit per speaker per agenda item unless the chair allows a speaker additional time. The chair may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if, after being called to order, the speaker persists in improper conduct or remarks. When the chair recognizes a speaker, he or she may approach the audience podium and microphone, state his or her full name and address for the record, and write such on the speaker log, and then share his or her comments. The audience podium microphone must be used by the recognized speaker because the meeting is recorded. A member of the public may not donate his or her speaking time to another speaker. A speaker should state his or her comments and address the issue, not the applicants. All comments are to be directed toward the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment. Please do not repeat comments already made by previous speakers. The chair reserves the right to ask a group with similar comments to appoint a spokesperson. If written comments have been submitted to the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment, please do not read them aloud during the meeting, as they are already a part of the record and copies thereof have been given to the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment. After everyone wanting to speak on an agenda item has done so, the chair will close the public comment period on the agenda item. No further public comment will be taken after this point. The chair will give the applicant an opportunity to address issues raised during public comment. The Planning Commission Board of Adjustment will then continue its discussion on the agenda item, and the chair will entertain a motion on it. The Planning Commission Board of Adjustment may make a motion to pass, deny, or table the item. Once a motion is made and seconded, the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment will develop findings of fact for conditional use permit and variance applications, and then vote on the motion. Once a vote is taken on an agenda item, the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment will move on to the next agenda item. Meetings commence at 6 p.m. and continue until all agenda items have been heard, or until 10 p.m. No new agenda items shall be considered after 9:45 p.m. The Planning Commission Board of Adjustment may, at its discretion, continue an item that is on the floor at 10 p.m. Any remaining agenda items shall be continued to another date, time, preferably the immediately following Tuesday at 6 p.m., and no further public notice will be provided for such a meeting continuation. The Planning Commission Board adjustment through the chair may modify these procedures prior to a meeting or an agenda item. Okay, so our first order of business is Planning Commission business, approval of minutes. We have none, as there is no Planning Commission old business. We have no new business, so we're going to move right on to the Board of Adjustment, approval of minutes. Anybody on the board have any notes to the minutes? Oh. Okay.
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, this is Veronica. I second the motion.
Okay. We've got a motion by Mike to approve the minutes and a second by Veronica. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote to approve the minutes.
Veronica, how do you vote?
This is Veronica. I vote aye.
Mike?
This is Mike, I vote aye.
This is Mark. I vote aye. Minutes have been approved. We'll move on to new business. New business is a variance application, 5-V-23 by Straight River Township, part of Outlot 5, Idlewild, Section 24, Township 139, Range 35, Straight River Township, Parcel 25.38.00005. Applicant is requesting the following after-the-fact variances. Part 1, Section 701 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance, SMO, to expand a non-conforming use. Part 2, Section 903.3 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance for a parking area to be located within the 100-foot ordinary high water mark structure setback. And Part 3, Section 904.6 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance to exceed 25% impervious area coverage on the lot. Do we have the applicants or representatives here? Could we come up to the table and tell us who you are and what you're looking for in this variance?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Sarah Swanson, and I'm here, on behalf of the Straight River Township.
Okay,
Should I be messing with that or not?
you're fine.
Okay. I have just sort of what I hope is a brief overview of the application, a brief history of what has brought us to this point, and then, of course, any questions that you have, I'm happy to do my best to answer. We're before the board this evening on, based upon a January 2022 complaint regarding, by and large, really the parking area of the Hines Lake Public Access. As a result of that complaint, as you know, Hubbard County conducted an investigation and concluded that some zoning issues did exist. And of course, the township and the underlying landowners, the Hill Family Trust, agree that corrective work was indeed needed. I'm sorry for the feedback.
It's okay, you're fine.
Okay.
Keep going, I'm not
Okay.
noticing it, so.
Okay, great. I just want to say too, the Hill family's attorneys had been planning on attending the meeting, but because of the weather, the ice, and whatever was going on down in the cities, they weren't able to make it up here tonight. So I'm not speaking on behalf of them. They are here. The Hills are here themselves. But as soon as this issue became known to the township, I just want to point out that the Hill family and their council did, just were very cooperative and attentive to addressing the issues and working with the township to come up with a good long-term solution for the lake and the public in this case. So just a very brief history of the access. In the early 1960s, this entire area of the lake was owned by Anna Ripley. And in 1964, Ms. Ripley granted a 66-foot wide easement to the township for public access to Hines Lake. As best as the township is aware, the original easement did include parking as a use, just as a natural byproduct of people accessing the lake. However, in 1999, the township applied for and was granted a permit to create the existing parking area, but now, of course, realizes that the parking area was constructed partially outside of that originally granted easement. The township was not aware of this location or legal description issue until the complaint and the subsequent report from the county. And then now the township's application for these after-the-fact variances is the township's solution or proposed solution to resolve these issues with the parking lot by taking the steps recommended by the county. So, as noted, the application has 3 parts, and I am going to address each part. So, part 1 is to expand the public access so that it includes the existing parking area. The parking area, as I believe you're aware from the application, lies partially outside of the originally granted easement. The township and the landowners, the Hill Family Trust, have proposed amending the easement to essentially correct the legal description so that the access and the parking is wholly encompassed within the actual legal description as described. That easement, a draft of that easement was provided with the application. It has been signed by the township and the Hills, but is being held pending the outcome of this variance. Adjusting the legal description will also correct an encroachment issue with the detached garage that is on the Hill property, which is on the opposite side of the access from the parking lot. That was pointed out at the lot viewal. Pretty easy to see that that's outside of the purview of the access. So why are we asking you to allow this request, part 1? Essentially, the parking lot has been in place for at least over 2 decades, or at least as well as we can ascertain at this point. Prior to the complaint in January of last year, the county had not received any other complaints about the public access, which suggests to the township, the Hill family, the county, that residents do not find the public access use to be detrimental to the overall character of the lot and of the lake. And of course, most public accesses, almost all public accesses have a parking area for guests to use, allowing a safer place to back their boats and trailers into and out of the water and to park while they're enjoying the waterway. Part 2, I'll just move on unless you have questions, but part 2 of the variance application is requesting relief from the requirement that the parking area be set back 100 feet from the ordinary high water mark. As it was made clear in the application and the county's staff report, the existing parking lot is 94 feet from the ordinary high water mark at its nearest point. Why are we asking you to allow this request? Looking at the larger picture here, the setback encroachment is relatively minimal. The area between the parking lot and the lake has a very nice natural vegetation cover, which reduces erosion and runoff. And it was noted in the staff report, which I'm sure you noticed too. I mean, we could see it somewhat when we were out at the lot viewal, but it's of course covered in snow right now. But there was noted that there's no erosion in that forested area between the parking lot and the lake there. So we are simply asking that 6-foot encroachment be allowed given those facts. And then part 3.
Sarah, a question. I think there's a little bit, in my mind, a little confusion. You're talking in terms of the parking lot staying as it is, same footprint, and yet somewhere in the documentation, it indicated request for a 75-foot setback. What is the actual request? That the parking lot stay where it is, location and footprint? Or you wanted relief to 75 feet. What's the request?
Do you mind if I consult with the township chair? I just want to be sure I'm answering appropriately. Yeah, thank you for asking that. The township's request is to merely leave the parking lot as it's currently located,
Footprint and location.
footprint and location.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then part 3 of the variance application is relief from the 25% impervious surface. So in this case, again, it was noted in the staff report that the impervious surface is 33% of the lot, which of course exceeds 25%. Why are we asking you to allow this request? I think it was made just very clear to me and hopefully to you as well, but when you're actually out there seeing the nature of the lot, you can see that the parking lot is just not grandiose. It's not large. It doesn't seem overly obtrusive to the size of the lot or the access itself or just the nature of that Blue Spruce Road. It's rather just a pretty humble space that allows a few vehicles and trailers to park. To reduce the parking area so that it comes down to 25% impervious surface would require reducing the size of the parking lot so that it really would defeat the purpose of that parking lot. It would make it such that it would be very difficult to turn a trailer around if there was any other vehicle parked there. So really the overage in this case is just due to the fact that this is a small, non-conforming lot to begin with. And so the size will naturally allow or causes those numbers to be skewed just because of the nature of the area that we're working with. Of course, we know the impervious surface requirements are there for the purpose of managing stormwater runoff and erosion concerns. And so, of course, that's something that the township is very committed to working on. They started implementing a stormwater management plan in the fall of 2021, which was, of course, prior to the complaint that is at issue. The stormwater coming off of Blue Spruce Road, which had been just sort of funneling naturally down the access and towards the lake, has already been greatly decreased by the installation of a culvert under the public access road there. And the township plans to continue reducing the runoff. As part of the application, there was a proposal and an initial set of sketches that came from Carvico, an engineering firm in Bemidji, to propose different ways to vegetate swales and have rock checks, a possible rain garden across the road. So there's a lot of work that the township and the Hill family have already engaged in and are committed to continue working on to address any of the issues with that additional impervious surface. That's essentially the bottom line, I guess, of this application, is just that this public access did not appear to be any issue until this report, this single report was filed a year ago. And since the township became aware of the complaint and the county's recommendation, they have worked diligently to resolve the issue, and this is just another step, hopefully, in that process. I want to point out, too, that there have been a number of comments filed with the county. The comments are opposing what the township is trying to do here, but I think it's important to remember that Hines Lake is a public waterway, and the Hills Council has consulted with the DNR, and they've made it very clear that if there is any effort to close down this access or limit this access, that would be in opposition to what the DNR would be looking for. Of course, the erosion and the stormwater management are concerns of the DNR as well. But any attempts to limit this access to the public or also limit the use of this access for riparian lot owners on the lake that don't have other access to get their docks, lifts, or watercraft into and off of the lake every year. That would just be very counter to the essential nature and the original nature of the easement, and of course what the township is trying to do here and just create a good long-term solution to the issues. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this point.
Okay, this is Mark. First question is just, is the stormwater management plan that you were referring to a completed plan now? Is it a work in progress, or what are we looking at there?
Yeah, it is a work in progress based upon what happens this evening and whether this variance is granted or with conditions or whatever. That will all be taken into consideration in finalizing the plan. But I know that the township through council is very open to working with the county to be sure that whatever that final plan that's reached is, satisfies the county and the Board of Adjustment, and also the Hill family will be involved in that because they are allowing some of their land, which is not subject to the easement, to be part of this overall management plan.
Okay,
Does that answer
Yep.
your question?
let's see if any of my board members have any questions here.
Just a clarification, there are two options that were in the stormwater plan proposal. It's my understanding that the mitigation from it, one of those two will be picked depending upon the outcome tonight and financial analysis, et cetera. Is that the process you?
Yes, I think that's correct. It should also be noted that the township has received some funding, quite a generous amount of funding that will cover this work. And that funding has to be utilized, I think, in 2023. It has to be used this year. So that's another motivation for the township to not lose those funds that are accessible to them at this point. But essentially, yes, pending, the outcome of this, a final plan will be selected from the two that have been proposed.
Not at this time.
Okay, are we ready for public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're gonna open this to public comment. And so when you take your turns, those of you that are gonna speak, I'm gonna warn you that I'm gonna adhere strictly to the 3-minute limit. I've got a timer with my colleague here on the left, and we hit that 3 minutes, I'm gonna stop you. I wanna keep the meeting moving, so please try to be brief. If you've submitted written public comment and you're gonna add additional, please don't repeat what's been in your written comment, because that's already a matter of record. But let's start with the public comment, and so if you're anybody that's ready, you need to step up to the podium, give us your name and address, and then you can go ahead and give us your public comment. I don't think he's making, are you making public comment?
I am.
Oh, we want you to stand
over here?
right there, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yep,
All right, Corey Akis, I'm Hubbard County Sheriff. And I just want you to know, I'm here in a public safety, efforts here. And the Hubbard County Sheriff's Office has used that public access for many, many years as, in our boat and water department. As you know, most lakes in this county have public accesses, especially the substantial bodies of water like this would certainly be. And a public access is very important in how the sheriff's office does their job. Responding to calls out on the water, emergency calls, whether it's a drowning or any type of an issue. Without that access, that is a huge setback, including the parking area. If we're not able to get, on that water and have a place to park our vehicle and our boat, it's truly, truly a setback. And, the part of the group that's here tonight wants, parking on the roadway. They wanna do away with the parking lot and park on the roadway. That's simply, not feasible, it's not legal, and it simply cannot happen, in the effort of public safety as well. It creates a traffic hazard, and again, it's just simply not legal. So I hope, you take that into consideration as well as far as an option as well. But for my standpoint, this is a very important issue for us, so that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close public, okay.
You need to write down.
Yes, please, and then after that, state your name.
My name is Chloe Gonu, and I am a year-round resident on Hines Lake and live on Blue Spruce Drive. I'm a board member on the Hines Lake Association. I have read so many of the documents and comments pertaining to these three after-the-fact variance requests. I come tonight to express my opposition to our Straight River Township being granted these ATFs in the variance application that you have before you this evening. I don't believe there is any dispute that the Straight River Township has violated the SMO. The SMO was made law to protect and preserve our shorelands and public water. It is very unsettling and upsetting to me, and even a bit suspicious that a governing body representing our township could illegally create a parking lot that has over the years negatively impacted our beautiful natural resource of Hines Lake. To grant these ATF variances seems hasty and short-sighted, and possibly a grave error. I truly believe that granting these ATF variances is a step in the wrong direction. Recently, one of my neighbors talked to Eric Butenworth. Eric told him that in his many years of service for the county, he did not recall that the 28 townships in Hubbard County had ever applied for an ATF variance, let alone 3 at one time. Approving these variances would set a poor precedent that may give the government representatives the notion that they will not be held accountable if they do not follow the laws that are set in place. There's parking on Blue Spruce Road shoulder. There are many other lake accesses. At Big Cormorant Lake in Becker County, they park on the shoulders. That is one idea to this situation. I also understand that possibly during John Knobloch's comments this evening, he will show an idea for a cul-de-sac that could accommodate up to 7 cars and trailers. Either or both of these alternatives are great ideas and are not right next to the lake, which is much better for the lake. I have served on a planning and zoning committee in Wright County, Minnesota for many years, and even served as the chair during my last term. I understand how difficult it is making these kind of decisions and how it can be, but doing the right thing, following our processes and engaging the community, home and landowners, I think proves to provide the best outcomes. On a side note, I just feel that we're not being heard by Straight River Township. Our Hines Lake Board meeting on January 3rd, there were 14 members that unanimously voted and approved that we reach out to the Straight River Township Board via email with a request to start working with our Hines Lake Board to come up with a plan for the Blue Spruce Road at the access entrance. We explained the plan would like to create.
I'm gonna interrupt you, ma'am. We're at the
Okay.
3-minute. I appreciate your comments, but in
Okay.
order to keep moving, I've gotta let other people have their turn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What if we want to question them?
Can we question? Eric, I'm just gonna ask you, if we have questions for people making public comment, would the appropriate time to do that be when they're at the podium, or wait till everybody has spoke, or what's your feeling on that for procedure?
I think you could do it either way. While they're at the podium would allow them to be captured on the microphone the most easiest.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a couple.
Okay, ma'am, I didn't remember your name, but we've got a board member here who does want to ask you a couple questions regarding your comments, so he'll just ask you. If you want to come back up, I apologize. That's what we're going to do then, is to ask questions before we let you leave there. I will stop you on the 3 minutes, but go ahead, Ken.
You made the accusation that the township has violated the laws.
The
You-
SMO.
Huh?
The SMO,
Shoreline Management Ordinance.
Oh, okay,
that's what I'm referring to.
no doubt.
Okay.
The other thing, and it came out in many of the comments, the question of time for a long-range plan. I saw no indication in any of those comments that provided any insight as to what kind of long-range plan could alter at all the current situation.
In what I just said?
No, I'm just asking you because you brought that up. You weren't
I
heard,
was-
and a long-range plan,
I was cut off by 3 minutes, I wasn't able to
yeah,
continue.
okay, so I'm asking you,
You can answer.
Okay, can I read that short paragraph? As I had said, at our board meeting on the 30th, the Heinz Lake, there were 14 members, 5 board members, or board members, and then the rest, association members. And this was just an example of how we feel that we are being accepted or listened to by Straight River Township, those of us that are living on the Heinz Lake area, either on the lake or the road directly across from it. I sent an email to them asking about signage regarding speed limits and things like that. Asked it to be read at their next board meeting, which was on February 6th. Just read the email, if nothing else. I have yet to even hear back from them that they received the email. I do understand that there is an agenda that needs to be performed or created, and maybe there wasn't time during that meeting, which we maybe could have discussed this at another board meeting, or the township meeting, but we haven't even been, it hasn't even been acknowledged that we sent the email.
I don't think this board can solve your relationship with the township board.
Correct.
Okay.
I agree with that.
But now let me finish.
Sure.
But you're making the accusations, you weren't heard, and there's a feeling that we should take the time for a long-range plan. From my personal perspective, the access is there, you're not gonna change that. The only other issue is parking lot. You can't park on the road, there's no close other place to make a reasonable parking lot. So it seems to me, any long-range plan will come out with the same answer that's being proposed by the township. So I don't understand why a large group is saying, give us time to come up with a long-range plan. What I don't see any suggestions or any alternative to providing access, as Mr. Ock said, access to the lake for not only safety, but also just normal
Yep.
expectations.
I would like to say that the words long-term plan, so to speak, are my words. They are not on behalf of anybody else. I'm saying that we're not being heard that there are other ideas and plans that are legal. We're just jumping to one without really looking at other options, which there are at least 2 that I'm aware of.
Okay, well,
Okay, Ken.
that's
That all?
all.
Yep, thank you. Okay, we're still open for public comment if we have somebody.
My name's Kathleen Merrick Diven. I live on Blue Spruce Road.
Okay.
My family has owned or rented property on Heinz Lake since the 1930s. I am also the Secretary Treasurer of the Hines Lake Board, Hines Lake Association. And our board is definitely split on this issue. And so we've not been able to address it as a board in and of itself. Many families on the lake, many of the longtime families on the lake do support keeping the parking lot if the water runoff can be addressed, so it's not going into the lake. And as I believe the attorney mentioned earlier, in fall of 2021, they had first step of getting the runoff from the road, going under the road and across the road and away from the lake. And with, if we can get engineering plans in place that address that runoff so it's not going into the lake, we support keeping the parking lot as is. Also, because of the complaint, our boat launch and our parking lot are in severe need of repair. They are almost unusable right now. They're very hard to use. My family actually stopped using it because it was just too hard to manipulate in there. And so we would like to get that repaired, get the runoff addressed, add more greenscape to the area, and we do. Many of us support support the variance if we can get that runoff addressed accurately and safely for the lake, for the health of the lake, because we do have a very healthy lake compared to many in the area, or so I've been told. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is David Merrick. My family has owned houses on the lake since the 50s. Hines Lake is labeled as a recreational lake, but it's an environmental lake to me. I've been using that public access my whole life. The amount of land that is currently at the access is not large enough for me to turn my boat and trailer around. As soon as there's one or two cars in the so-called parking lot, we have many people getting their cars jackknifed or stuck to struggle to get back out onto the road. All my life, I've been backing up directly off of Blue Spruce Road to launch my boat because the access road lacks the space, even though the illegal parking lot that was put in 1999. I think that access road to the lake should only be to unstrap your boat, launch your boat, to pull your drain plug, and to de-weed your boat. If you had done your site visit in the summer or this spring, you would have seen the massive erosion, as the person in front of me said. I'd be gladly to show you this spring and our neighbors if you're to park one or two vehicles in there. It is not a parking lot that you are going to enter, turn around, and launch your boat. Last summer, there's 3 different vehicles, 3 occasions, 6 different vehicles. 3 of them parked in the illegal parking lot, and the rest of the 3 parked out on Blue Spruce Road. We need an organized parking plan on Blue Spruce Road. I think simply on the east side, if you move 4 feet of dirt and allow 3 cars to park on the Blue Spruce Road, that would give us 0 impact of water running off into the lake, which is the current hard cover of the illegal parking lot is doing right now. It's running massive amount of water into the lake. I'm not happy with the erosion and the excessive water that's running into the lake. I want to see the least amount of hard cover as possible at Hines Lake, because if you witness after a big storm, the water gets very cloudy and murky next to the access area. In closing, I ask that you deny all these variances until the county and the township can work together with the Hines Lake Association to come up with a public access plan that makes sense for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I make a
one comment real quick before I sign in?
Before you sign in, why don't you sign in, give us your name, and make your comments?
I have some very important comments, but I will wait till after, okay? Because I timed my talk and it's very tight.
Okay?
And if I talk, I'll have to talk very fast for 3 minutes, but I think I can do it.
We need your name.
I'm John Navla.
Okay.
I'm the original complaint.
Okay?
I'll have to fly if you guys can pick up on this. My understanding of this illegal parking lot will not be grandfathered in. I also understand this lot must meet today's stringent specs if a new permit is applied for to remediate this parking lot. So I'm perplexed and concerned to be here in front of a planning commission asking you to deny an after-the-fact variance for land use that you do not even have a concept plan for, that has to meet today's tough standards for a complicated project, which is a public access on a lake that goes down to a steep hill. The concept plan should show options for a public access boat launch site design like the ones that I've been studying for 8 months. Before granting variances, especially ATF variances, a planning commission should have in their hands a concept plan. This concept plan should very accurately depict dimensions of parked vehicles, radius for turning around vehicles, specific calcs separated for hardcover, for the grandfathered in part and the non-grandfathered in part of the land, and at a minimum have arrows showing the planned direction of drainage to assure that 100% of the stormwater is retained and not flowing towards the lake for the drainage coming off the illegal parking lot. Also, if staff's goal is to merge this illegal parking lot with this non-conforming access road to use as a turnaround, plus use it for lots of parking, they are unrealistic. Accesses need to be orderly parked with 40 to 50 foot long parking stalls. They should accomplish parking elsewhere where they do not need these variances. They have plenty of room in the other township right-of-ways in order to deliver some realistic organized parking for the public. Because of time constraints here, I'm only going to touch on 2 errors in the variance application of the staff report. First error, hardcover calcs that Hill Surveyor provided Eric are greatly underestimated. My engineer's hardcover calcs is nearly 2,500 square feet higher. If you grant these variances, this project could be just under 50% hardcover when completed. Complete insanity. I guarantee you, if you had your hands on a real boat launch concept plan, any extra 45-foot long parking spaces would blow the roof off your hardcover totals. Staff says removing the parking lot will add significant public safety concerns. It's just as dangerous to have cars and trailers parked in this inappropriately sized parking area where other people are trying to turn around and back up while launching their boat. All 3 other lake accesses used in the comps in the staff report precede the 1971 SMO. They're not comps. The township attorney says 3 times remediation of the parking lot is a substantial expense. He stated in the next sentence, he says it's outside funding. Can I finish my closing? I got a really important closing. It's just a short.
Okay, I'm gonna give you that closing.
I got 1 paragraph. That's
Okay.
it. Okay. In closing, I recommend you deny these ATF variances, but at a minimum, table them and tell staff and township to call the expert that I have been in contact with at the DNR named Dan. Dan is an expert with public access land use and is a senior supervisor in charge of 280 public accesses, and he hasn't even been contacted. Then get to work right away on a realistic concept plan. Then have your engineer come back with a realistic hardcover calcs and a realistic stormwater plan. After all this, then you can see what you're working with before jumping on the gun on an ATF variance you may not even need.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you there. Any questions from our? Okay, thank you very much.
Hold on.
Oh, wait, Ken's got a
Yeah,
question?
I've heard from the last 2 speakers now that there's contention that there is not adequate space for doing a turnaround.
That's correct. You cannot do a radius
What's-
and have
what's
cars
the-
in a lot.
What's the total distance for the proposed easement from the edge of the parking lot, I can't see it on any drawing, to the edge of the easement on the other side.
The plan is so bad, there's no dimensions on it.
Sarah, do-
But the hardcover is so low that
Okay, so
you have something, Sarah?
what's the distance from what would be, I think, the north? Or the left side, as I look at it, all the way to the other side of the easement? What's that distance? Anybody, can you measure that at all, Eric? In any way?
Looks to be 42 feet.
No?
I'm seeing 42 feet.
I see.
That sounds about right. I don't have the ability to measure off of the drawing that's on the screen, Ken.
Based on the survey, I see 42
Well,
feet.
the parking lot's about 35 feet. How wide is the road, and then how far over to the thing? You say that's 40? It seems more than that.
43 plus, I'm having a hard time, 18 plus 16, it appears, to all the way.
That was the original easement. How about the current new easement?
Sarah,
Yeah, that's on the certificate of survey that was filed with the application, which I believe that is what Eric has up.
is that what he's showing? So what are we saying that distance is?
It's very hard to see, but this first distance here appears to be 43 feet, and the next one 18.5, and then from the road back to the other side of the easement, 14.47 is what I think I'm seeing.
Well, I see, when I'm looking at one that has zeros, I see 33 feet and 50 feet from the edge of the easement to the edge of the easement on the other side, which is a little bit farther than the parking lot. This distance,
Yeah, you're right, that's what it says, Ken. 88 feet total.
so 80, and so you don't think it can be turned around in 88 feet?
So as soon as, I mentioned, as soon as one or two vehicles with their boat trailers are parked at a diagonal because it's not deep enough to
Yeah.
handle the DNR specs, which is 50 feet now,
Yeah,
as soon as two people are in there, you can't turn around in there, period.
then a person can't come. That is not unusual on small accesses, I can guarantee you that.
Right, but the big issue with this is safety, that staff is preaching, not turning around Blue Spruce Drive, we do it anyway.
Any other questions?
That's-
I have the other one, or I don't know if it's making a point of impervious surface. When I look at this particular LLC tract is just one of 3 tracts that belong to the Hill family. And although technically it's a small lot or small tract, it is really, if you were looking at what's the overall impact of the lake, it seems to me you'd look at all 3 tracts that are under common ownership. So,
And I think I just can address it. The parking lot doesn't handle many, many days at there. And that's kind of the issue, is that's why we're looking for a long-term sustainable plan that can handle, like my cul-de-sac drawing, which uses township right-of-ways on the other side of the road, which is, by the way, in your report. Okay, I drew it in there. And that's a really good plan, where the township could bang in a cul-de-sac and get everybody onto that cul-de-sac and have a full turnaround, and then just use this, like most people do, like at Big Cormorant Lake, where the DNR has the parking. They don't have any parking near the lake. All that is used for is decontamination, unplugging your gun, then use this for the turnaround. And then we need a larger, because when we have big days, it doesn't matter, they're still on Blue Spruce Road. And that's my point is, my conversations with the deputy sheriff of Becker County completely 100% contradicts what the sheriff in Hubbard County told you tonight.
Mr. Knobloch, I do have a comment, if I so,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
go ahead, Veronica.
I think if you desire additional parking beside this proposal that we have in front of us, then you need to meet with your township and bring that proposal to your township. If additional parking is desired, that's something that we're not involved with at this time. That's a whole different situation. You need to speak with your township about additional parking. I agree that additional parking would be nice, especially if you're saying this one only holds so many, but that's not the case that we're dealing with tonight. That's something you need to talk to your township, and maybe you guys can come up with another plan for additional parking in the future.
Yeah, and that relationship is broken down, as we've told in my letter that I sent.
Yep, okay, any other questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you very much. Any other public comment? Okay, scenery. No, we've taken your public comment, thank you. I guess we've got one here. Okay.
My name is Christina Hill. I'm part of the Hill Trust and a co-property owner. I'd like to say that we were away for a very long time and we're not actually being able to use Hines Lake or any of our properties because we lived in China for 15 years. And so we had very limited access. When my father-in-law passed away, we became responsible for the parcels on Hines Lake. One of the very first things that we did was we realized there was an erosion problem that had been happening for some 45, 50 years, and it had only been getting worse and worse. So I decided to start communicating with the varying different organizations that might be able to support in making our lake be more protected, such as SWCD, COLA, the former president of Hines Lake Association, and of course the township. And we worked hard to try to start building relationships and then start coming up with solutions. I feel as though we have gotten cut off from pursuing the solutions, and for almost 2 years we've been cut off from getting to the point of being able to move forward. And I'd really appreciate getting to a solution which ES has come up with, and we have supported both entities. Since it is our property and we have granted the easement and kept that easement granted back from Mrs. Ripley, we would really like to have this move forward so that we could move forward to protect not only our lake, but the lake shore and the natural resources of Hubbard County. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay,
My name is Peter Hill.
okay.
I want to echo my Christina Hill, my wife, just stated. After coming back from living abroad for many years through work, we wanted to carry on tradition and also legacy of my father, who actually built a cabin here in 1969. He's been coming to Hines Lake for many decades before, when he was young. We recognize after doing the reviewing the land area, the parcels, and recognize that there was some modification is needed, and so worked with the township to execute the variance of the parcels. And as an owner, and we decided to proceed with more officializing the granting the easement to township. And we have come to a agreement as to how to work together, as well as township, as well as also the county, to continue allowing the parcel to be utilized not only for the Hines Lake members, but also whole community for the township as well. The public access has been used for the last 20-some years. I've been coming up before living in China. There has been many people continuously use of that public access for many years. And as the parcel owner, we want to continue to have that public access to be used. There were some comments about the parking lot lessening or increasing. I think with the work with the township as well as the county or various organizations, we think we'll be able to, by working together, we'll be able to improve the public access and have the community within our area to continue to use the public access as much as possible. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Further public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. And we'll see if our board members, any questions for the applicant?
This is Mike. I think this is fairly straightforward, and it's a good faith effort by the parties to correct a situation that's been needed to be addressed for some time. As far as the comments about parking this public access compared to another public access, my experience has been each one is different. And there are different standards based on different lakes, land availability, and all kinds of factors. But to me, I see this as fairly straightforward and with conditions, I believe, of a completion and executed soil and water conservation district plan with the township and the parties involved being a condition that I would want to see as part of this.
Yeah, this is Veronica speaking. I have similar comments as Mike had. I would like to address a couple of the comments from public comment too. Just wanted to state that we did receive public comment again from Corey Akis, the Hubbard County Sheriff's Office. I wanted to address the comment that we had from Becker County Sheriff's Office. That's not our county. We're not concerned with what other counties do. We're concerned with Hubbard County. And if it's illegal to park on Blue Spruce Road, then it's illegal to park on Blue Spruce Road. We're looking at the safety aspect as well and moving forward with this application. And I personally, wouldn't want to be parking on Blue Spruce Road. And the other comment is, many of you said that multiple parking lots are desired. Again, take that up with your township. That is not the situation that we're dealing with right at this moment. If additional parking lot is desired, take that up with your township and see what options you have out there for overflow parking, because it has been commented a few times that overflow parking would be nice. So again, take that up with your township, please. I do agree as well. The township has demonstrated, again with the applicants, on the proper direction with corrective measures to bring the public access into compliance with the Shoreland Management Ordinance, not only to adequately ensure easements are amended to accurately encompass the existing graveled parking area and access road, but also the stormwater management plan to aid and address the erosion issues, giving the area to safely park the vehicles. I personally have been out in that area on Hines Lake after the culvert was in place. I did utilize the boat launch, and I saw that some efforts were already taking place, as mentioned, for that area with the erosion control. I did not have any problems. I parked my vehicle in the parking area that was desired. I would not park my vehicle on the road. Part 2, according to the certificate of survey accompanying the application, The need for the after-the-fact variance is due to the current parking area setback on the northeast corner is 94 feet from the ordinary high water mark and 97 feet on the southwest corner. This area between the parking area and lake is a steep slope covered by mature forest cover, which is difficult to accurately measure the 100-foot setback, and likely explains why the parking area slightly encroaches the setback. So I agree, this slight difference is, it's not that big of an issue, and I can see where the problem may have come across. And part 3 on the impervious surface, my comments are, the area overage is due to the access being located on the small, non-conforming lot on which they have discussed, which no other improvements are located. The parking area has been in place for over 2 decades, and prior to the January complaint, the county has not received any complaints about the public access. Granting the variance to exceed the 25% impervious surface seems reasonable to ensure adequate space for vehicles to safely utilize the public access with or without trailers. The access is also utilized, as demonstrated from Mr. Koriakis, by not only for safety issues, but it's also utilized by lake service providers as a means of accessing the lake to install and remove docks, lifts, and watercraft for many owners on the lake. I'm strongly in favor of retaining the parking area that has been in place for over 2 decades and opposed to having any parking on Blue Spruce Road. And I agree that the condition we need to have with the township working with the SWCD and Carvico or whoever, and to utilize one of the 2 options or designs, as long as it meets the Environmental Service Office's standards as well, with a deadline date of December 31st, 2023. That way it'll also allow Straight River Township to utilize the state funds that they have been told that they can use.
Thank you, Veronica. This is Mark. I think my only input on this is reacting to some of the public comment that we've heard here tonight. We are not tasked, I don't believe, with designing a new public access. That's not what we're being asked to do here, so I think that's outside of the purview of what we're looking at. I did have a question for maybe Eric, and Veronica just mentioned it, as to how best, if we were to go ahead and approve this, that we would condition that stormwater management plan to make sure that it's, I'm not a stormwater management expert, so I mean, I can't give any authority to whether it's done properly or not, but what would be, Eric, I guess, the proper way, or even we could ask Scott, to make sure that that condition is strongly upheld there if we were to go ahead with this? Give me any insight into that?
I guess, Eric speaking, it's up to the board of how much information you'd want, or in what state of a plan you'd like to be able to see things. With the fact that the township is entertaining working with Carvico Engineering, who has already done a preliminary evaluation and given some options. Those options align with what I would find to be necessary and effective for treating the erosion out there. So I think a condition on their continued working with the Carvico firm to finalize the plan, implement it using those state funds that were acquired through the SWCD's efforts, and ensuring that it's installed by the end of this calendar year would be sufficient for me.
Okay, another question is, the funds, I thought I saw a dollar figure attached, as far as what those funds are. Was that dollar figure arrived at by bidding this job, or was it an arbitrary amount that was available to be used for this? In other words, how do we know that the funds covered, if we find a plan workable here, those dollars would cover that? Do you know what I'm saying? I don't want to get caught after the fact saying that there is a shortage to do the work necessary. Can anybody give me any insight into that? Yep, you can. Why don't you identify yourself? We'll just answer my question then.
I'm Connie Ball. I'm a supervisor with Straight River Township.
Okay.
We found out through Soil and Water that there was $30,000 set aside for Hines Lake public access repairs. And so that is available to us. And we're also told there's a possibility there may be more, which would be maybe a 50-50 split with soil and water. But that would have to be approved at a later time. But there's a possibility of more. And our township is very, we have the funds for a project if we, depending, on the amounts. So we don't know how much it's going to be at this point, but, and depending upon the plan when
Okay.
it's drawn up.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
This is Ken, in kind of coming back and summarizing. It seems like the board is in favor of probably going ahead with this variance. I'd just like to point out, one of the conditions I think we're thinking about is that the parking lot location and footprint shall remain. I'm thinking I'd like to ask that the two corners of that parking lot be staked or marked for future reference. The second thing is that there's a property line adjustment and a new easement that need to be completed. That would be a condition. And the third one is, we just talked about that between the Township, Soil and Water Conservation District, and Professional Engineering Group should select the best stormwater plan and implement it in 2023. That's what I would see as the conditions.
Okay. Anybody add anything to that? Anybody ready to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we accept the variance request, all three parts, accept the staff finding a fact, and the three conditions I just mentioned be a part of it.
Okay, this is Mark. I'll second that motion. So we'll take a vote here now. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
This is Veronica, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
This is Mike, I vote aye.
This is Mark. I vote aye. The motion is passed. You'll be receiving a letter from ESO acknowledging that, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business is old business. We have variance application 35-V-22 by Todd and Julie Zieske, Unit 6, Block 1, Village in the Pines, Section 19, Township 141, Range 34, Lake Emma Township on Potato Lake, a recreational development lake, parcel 16.39.90600. Applicants are requesting a variance from section 702 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance for a proposed enlargement of a non-conforming residence in the shore impact zone. We have the applicant up here. If you state your name and permanent address for the record, and then tell us what you're looking for.
Yep, I'm Todd Zieske, from Waconia, Minnesota. Address is 1288 Parkside Lane, and this is the variance we met on back in November. And basically, you board members asked us to make some changes and come up with another plan. So we narrowed our cabin by 6 inches from their survey sketch. We reduced the height from 23 foot 6 inches to 19 foot 4 inches. Still much lower than cabins 3 and 4, by about 5 feet lower than cabin 3 and 4. We got a continuous peak roof. It's perpendicular to the lake. It's an A-frame style look from the lakeside. The deck is reduced in overall size. It's also single story. and it's not encroaching any closer to the lake. The engineer who helped me draw up these plans, he's from Winston, Minnesota, and he's part of the planning and zoning board there for over 35 years. When we purchased our cabin, we did not know we couldn't rebuild like cabins 3 and 4 at a 24-foot height because the cabin already existed. So we're just asking for some fairness on approval for our plan.
Okay, any comments or questions by the board?
Just some questions about the current deck. In trying to read the background information, you're proposing a 24 by 12 deck.
Correct.
And we had asked that any deck not get any closer to the lake.
Correct.
However, I think it's come to light that your current deck is 20 by 12.
It should be, if you look at the survey sketch, the cabin shows it's 20.5 feet, which is 20 foot 6 inches. And then that side walk, or that side deck that comes down the west side is 3.9 feet.
Yeah, so you're,
So that's a little over 24 foot wide.
versus 20 feet currently.
No, I'm currently 24 foot wide.
Okay, I'm trying to retrack history. There was a deck built 20 by 12. There was an after the fact variance request back in, I think, 2008 that requested that deck be reduced to a 10 by 15 size. Obviously, that was not done. And so I asked the question, has the current deck been even expanded beyond that 20 and 12 one that existed in 2008?
I have not touched the deck or made any changes to the size of the deck. So the deck, the way it sits today, was the way that I purchased the property.
And that's a 24 by 12?
Yes.
I can't remember being there. It extends out beyond the current cabin 4 feet to the left of it, as in that drawing?
Yes, and actually it comes down about half of the cabin.
Okay.
And I propose getting rid of that side that's right up next to the cabin on the west side, and actually have the steps, if you go back to the aerial view.
Okay.
The steps will be coming right up the deck from that,
So you
the west
contend
side.
your current deck is 24 by 12?
Correct.
Okay. That's my question.
Okay, anybody else? I'm just gonna ask you, when we met last, one of the criteria we asked you for was to try to keep your design, your overall height to 17 feet. Did you consider that at all, or?
Yes, and that's why I met with the engineer as far as how high that we can structurally go with the type of rafters that he proposed using. We can probably get it down a little bit lower than that, than what it is today. But being with his experiences, being on the zoning commission, there in the city of Winston, he said, let's try this and see if it gets approved. And I did express to him that you guys wanted to be around that 17 foot somewhere, so.
Okay, I can't remember, maybe the board can help me, or you can. On your original plan that you perhaps showed us, did you have these dormers shown on that plan?
I did not have dormers on the other plan.
Okay,
But the other plan was a flat faced in the front, with like a shed type pitched roof. So it'll be a full second story, and this here is just a loft.
okay. Okay, anybody else?
Mark, I'm going to ask you.
Go ahead, Ken.
I think they were reading the pitch is 10-12.
10-12, I believe, is in the front, yes.
If the 2 feet construction-wise, to meet this 17 feet, could you do like 8 by 12? Is there any reason why the pitch couldn't be changed to get it to the 17 feet?
Well, if you're asking me, 812, I don't know what that would bring the overall height to. I can't answer that. It would drop it. But I guess the one thing I'd say is we're here now with, looking at your revised plan. I don't really want to explore what it could be now. I mean, we were looking for specifics when we last talked at that last meeting. So right now, if we were to, talk about what it could be, I mean, I don't think that helps us get through this process right here with this plan that you've submitted now as what I'm assuming is your final plan. Any other feedback on that? Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, well, my board thinks about this. I will open for public comment. And seeing none, we'll close public comment. So again, I think one of my big things is the height. I mean, that's what we asked for. We specifically asked for that reason, because that's what we're trying to maintain here, and you didn't achieve it. So in my opinion, I'm not in favor of going forward with this. Myself, I don't know how they feel. We might get some input here before we vote on it, but Veronica?
Yep, this is Veronica. I do have comments as well. I do appreciate your efforts reducing the height. However, it definitely wasn't the guidance that we all strongly suggested. Secondly, with those dormers, it causes the structure to look and function as a two-story cabin with an excessive height in the shore impact zone. The main thing why we were pushing towards the 17-foot height is because you're 33 feet from the ordinary high water mark in that shore impact zone. And so, as we discussed last time, if we were to measure and give you, because in the 100-foot setback, that's where we have the maximum height. And so if we were to make those changes and what you really could be, your current cabin is 14 feet, and is why we were kind of really pushing towards that 17 feet. I believe you can achieve a two-bedroom cabin meeting that suggested 17-foot height. You do still have some other options, because I'm pushing towards the same as we all discussed in the minutes from last meeting. Was the height was a big benchmark for all of us. I cannot speak for everyone else. I can only speak for myself. You do have options, though, to rebuild the same 3D mold within the footprint by permit, or apply for a variance with the reduced height closer to 17 foot, since the structure is in that shore impact zone of a 33-foot ordinary high water mark setback. And just trying to utilize that guidance that we've given you. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Veronica.
This is Mike. I guess I'd be in agreement with what both Mark and Veronica said. I think the board was very strong when they said 17 feet, and that's not what I see here now that's before us. And with the dormers, and all, it's essentially a two-story home, and that's what we were trying to, I think, get away from and protect the view shed. So as submitted, I am not in favor.
Any other comments? Ken?
No, I think I agree, especially with my comment, making it a two-story home, so to speak, especially with a full bathroom on the second loft area.
Ken, the cabin next door that you guys just approved is 2 stories, and it's got a second bathroom upstairs. And that height is, like you guys said, 17 foot. I can get this one back down to the 17. Give me a number. You guys said around 17 feet. Can I just put it in line with the other cabin as far as the same height?
This is Mike. If what I'm hearing is you are amenable to amending your proposal to a 17-foot height, that's what I would, 17 feet is 17 feet. But the other part of that issue that I have is the dormers and what the view shed is that With 17 feet with dormers, I would not be in favor of.
So, this is Mark, question for Eric. If, the applicant was interested in revising this, we've already tabled it. Is there a process going forward where we could continue that? Or is it simply we either decide to accept or deny this as it is, and then he can, make another application if he thinks he can meet the criteria that we've kind of laid out for him? What's your opinion on that, Eric?
Eric speaking. At the November 2022 meeting, the applicant did sign an indefinite time extension form, so that's a non-issue. I think the bigger question for the board is, you gave pretty clear direction
Right.
last time, and the plan as submitted didn't comply with your directives, so it's entirely up to the board whether you wanted to give another opportunity for the plan to be possibly amended again.
This is Veronica speaking. Just my input is, I think the opportunity for us at this time is if we're all in the same boat or in the same discussion, that this one gets denied, and the applicant, if he wants to come forward in the future, to bring a whole new application.
Go ahead, Ken.
This is Ken, from my standpoint, I won't approve anything till I see a final plan. I don't want to redesign it here. I want to see a final plan, and once again, it's 17 feet, A-frame perpendicular to the lake, deck the same size, and a definition of how you're gonna access second floor. Looks like your design, current one, has one of those circular stairs
Correct.
inside.
Correct, yes.
If you're gonna retain that, okay, fine. If you're gonna do it outside, I also wanna see in the plan what you're gonna do.
Okay. Anybody ready to make a motion on this?
This is Mike. I'll make a motion to deny and accept the findings of fact as presented by staff.
And this is Mark. I'll second that motion. And so we've got a motion by Mike with a second by myself to deny. Ken, how do you vote?
Before I do it, we're denying this as opposed to delaying it.
Yes. This is denied.
The
That's the
motion is to
motion.
deny.
I vote nay.
Okay, Veronica, how do you vote?
This is Veronica, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Mark, I vote aye. Your motion's denied. You'll be receiving a letter from Environmental Services letting you know that outcome. If you have any other further questions, you can speak to Eric at Environmental Services.
So, this is Todd. Eric, do I need to apply for the variance again and pay you guys another $500 or whatever the variance fee is? Or do I just submit you another plan?
Since this application was denied, you would need to submit a new application, and it would need to be different enough from what was presented that it could be accepted. Otherwise, if it's similar to what was submitted, then there's a 1-year waiting period in the ordinance before you'd be able to resubmit a new application.
So, you didn't answer my question, so I gotta give you another application fee,
Correct.
and I gotta wait 1 year?
If you would submit something that would not be significantly different from what was proposed.
Okay, so you wanna, basically start the process all over and then do another plan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next application is new business. It's a variance application 1-V-23 by Terry and Nadean Inman, part of the southwest one-half of Government Lot 4, Section 5, Township 143, Range 32, Lakeport Township on Garfield Lake, a recreational development lake, parcel 19.05.01.000. Applicants are requesting new variances from Part 1, Section 702 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance for a proposed lakeward addition to a, non-conforming residence that does not comply with the 100-foot ordinary high water mark structure setback, and a proposed lakeside deck on said structure. And Part 2, Section 502.2 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance for a proposed detached garage to be located within the 100-foot ordinary high water structure setback and shore impact zone, and Section 903 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance for an accompanying proposed lakeward expansion of a driveway located within the 100-foot ordinary high water setback. Applicants are requesting an after-the-fact variances from Part 1, Section 502.2 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance and Article 5, Section 1.01 of the Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance for 2 accessory structures that do not comply with the 100-foot ordinary high water setback or 10-foot rear line setback, and that are located on top of a septic system drain field. Part 2, Section 502.2 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance for an accessory structure that does not comply with the 10-foot rear and sideline setbacks, and Part 3, Section 502.2 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance for 2 accessory structures that do not comply with the 100-foot ordinary high water setback. We have the applicants here. If you could give us your name and address, and then give us an explanation of what you're looking for.
Good evening. Thank you for considering our variance request. My name is Terry Inman. This is my wife, Nadean. Our permanent resident is 1378 Central Avenue North in Lakeport. The reason for our variance request is to make our home more suitable, as we have recently retired and moved to our cabin in Lakeport, which is now our home. The variance request is due to the particular difficulties of our lot sizes and shape. So Part 1 and 2 of our request, we're proposing a variance to build a 26 by 50 garage to be used as a shop, vehicles, boats, tools, and personal items storage. This would require a variance to be 28 feet off the ordinary high water mark. The garage would be dug into the hillside to minimize environmental impact. I also spoke with Hubbard County Soil and Water about working with them on how to control the rainwater by using gutters, rainwater catches, rain gardens, vegetation kits, and briefly discussing cost-sharing program options. The second part of it, number 2, is we're proposing an addition on our existing house that would require a 60-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark. This would include a 10 by 16 area on the north side that would be used as an entryway, mudroom. The existing porch, 6 by 32, would become part of the interior of the house. The 18 by 18 part of the addition would be used as a porch and have an 18 by 30 deck running south of the 18 by 18 addition. With the new structure, we'd also run the gutters and talk to environmentals, or talking to soil and water to help with the water runoff. So Part 3 through 7 are after the fact due to my oversight of the county requirements. We're proposing a variance of the 1990 shed to be 78 feet off the ordinary high water mark and to be 0 feet off the west property line. Variance number 4 request is for the 2019 woodshed to be moved to a different location. This would be 1 foot off the south property line and 6 foot off the western line. Part 5 propose a 68-foot setback off the ordinary high water mark for a garden shed. The shed is used for gardening, tools, pots, planters. The garden shed is proposed to stay in the existing spot. I know after the lot review, I read some of the comments about this, and we got it mixed up between 4 and 5 as far as moving the sheds there. So number 5, the garden shed would be requested to stay in that position that it's in now. So Part 6, last year we erected a 10 by 10 by 8 canvas, actually it's polyester shed to store snow removal equipment and garage tools, lawnmowers, etc. It would be removed after the garage is up. Part 7 of the variance is a fire pit woodshed to be 46 off the ordinary high water mark. We feel these requirements are within harmony of the surrounding properties to the north and south. If you look to the 5 to the north and to the south, there's properties anywhere from 30 feet to 90 feet off the ordinary high water mark. The other thing in one of the notes, as far as after a lot review, talked about possibly moving the garage further to the south to gain distance off the lake. And when I measured that today, it would gain 2 feet on the front or the south side of the garage, but the north side would still remain at 28 feet. That's all I have.
Okay, this is Mark. When you, just out of curiosity, when you're talking about moving the proposed garage and the gain that you mentioned, how far are you proposing moving it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't proposing to move the garage. In the notes from the lot review,
Yep.
I talked about considering moving the lot, or moving the garage
Yep.
south. And like, I was just clarifying that we'd only gain approximately 2 foot off the lake by doing that. So we proposed to keep the garage as our original proposal.
It was in the
Location.
staff notes that we were reviewing, and that's what he's referring to, is those staff notes were proposing another option, and so he did look at that today.
Okay. All right, but nothing was suggested as to how far south it was in order, I mean, what he's saying is that if it's moved south, he's only gonna pick up a couple of feet, but doesn't that depend on how far south that is moved?
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. So the reason why I stated 30 feet, as you've seen out there, the way the driveway is and the turnaround, if we moved any further, there won't really be any room to turn anything around there.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the board?
This is Veronica speaking. I just have a comment before I ask any questions. I just wanted to say that with the snow cover, it's, difficult to see everything that I think would be best for us to visualize. So I just wanted to put that out there. If we were able to visit when the snow was gone, then we could maybe assess some ideas or visually see the distances and any type of erosion that's already happening or not happening, or what type of vegetation that you have, so we could see, just some other options. It is very difficult during this time of year to just jump in, not being able to see exactly what's out there. So I just wanted to put that out there first.
Anybody else?
I'm kind of with Veronica on that. It's very hard, given all the attempts at doing your project all within the setback zone. It's very hard in the wintertime to see anything. I don't know what your vegetation cover is down by the lake, because clearly any approval of any of this is gonna probably require some mitigation along the shoreline. The other thing is your garden shed, is that a storage shed? What do you put in there?
So she has her planting stuff,
My
tooling.
potting soil, my pots, my garden tools.
So it's not a lake-related structure where you're storing things that have to do with, no, okay.
Yeah, she has quite a few plants around, which I,
Okay.
okay, yeah.
You can't see with the snow.
Public? Go ahead, Mike. Go
This is Mike. Based on the conditions when we were out there, I have a real hard time looking at this multiple part application and moving forward in a positive way for the applicants, just based on what my colleagues have said here about not being able to see. Extremely concerned about slopes, vegetation, closeness to the water, cutting into hillsides, retaining walls. All of those put up red flags in my mind, and without being able to see the lay of the land or having a approved plan by an engineer or someone of that nature to explain what is going to happen to all this runoff, I'd have a hard time unless I can see this. So I guess what I'm going to ask you is, will you entertain a motion to table this and sign the necessary documents in order for us to view this in conditions where we can actually do our due diligence?
That sounds like a reasonable request, yes.
Yes.
Could I ask a couple other things while we're at it? Eric, is it the shed that's on the drain field, it's been there 20 years, is it an absolute from a state safety standpoint, and put it that way, that a shed could not be on top of a drain field? I mean, it's not the whole drain field. I'm trying to look at, as we go downstream, things that are gonna be inviolate. And could we grant a variance to allow something that's very much against the state law, state rules?
Yeah, Eric speaking, the state septic rules specify that structures aren't allowed to be placed on drain fields, and there's multiple reasons for that. One would be it doesn't allow vegetative cover on top of that, so it's then susceptible to erosion due to there not being any cover. It also doesn't allow that evapotranspiration to take place with the vegetation above the drain field that aids in the system's operation. It also then allows the possibility for burrowing animals, rodents, to take up residence in that area, and that can compromise the system's functionality. And especially on this lot, there aren't many alternatives for drain fields, especially that would meet setbacks. So then you'd be looking at potentially where the proposed detached garage is, shown on the drawing as being where another alternate site could go. So it's very imperative to ensure the preservation of this drain field on this property in
So
particular.
that ultimately will have to be moved, based on what you're saying.
That would definitely be the department's
Okay, so
recommendation.
that's not an option. My only other comment, and I know we would delay this, but I'm trying to think in terms of things that will probably never potentially pass, and maybe they might want to think of some alternatives. I don't see myself ever being supportive of a huge garage 28 feet from the lake, even though the practical difficulty of the lot width, that's a way oversized structure, way too close to the lake. You know, I don't know what the alternative is, but I don't see that as a starter, so,
Can I comment on that?
yeah.
You can.
So one thing that we can look at is, removing the sheds, as far as the 1999 shed, the garden shed, when we talked about already removing the canvas shed when the garage was built. I would like to keep the wood shed just so we have good dryable wood when we burn it.
Woodshed,
A woodshed.
woodshed,
Yeah,
oh, there?
Yep, so if we eliminated the other structures, and I mean, that's one of the reasons for the size of the garage.
Are you in the
Plus-
easement there, or right up to it?
Of the which part? So the garage is 10 foot off the easement. The,
Yeah, I don't, well, it's probably future discussion. I don't have any problem building right up to the easement for a bike trail. It isn't.
You're talking about the woodshed, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, okay.
Okay, we're gonna take public comment now, open that up. I think we have a gentleman ready to make it, so,
Hello, my name is Kevin Erickson, and I guess I was surprised to hear that there's going to be something a foot off the south border, because that's me. I have property right next door. I have had that property for almost 49 years now at 1320 Central, but I live in Anoka, Minnesota. I'm concerned that we're just obliterating Minnesota state shoreland rules in this request. This lot did not have a buildable lot when it was established in the first place without being surveyed. And there has already been a very generous variance allowed to build the existing house on it 80 feet instead of 100 feet, which is a normal setback. And now that 80-foot setback waiver is not enough. And this just completely ignores state and county shoreline rules. And 60 feet from the lake is almost half of what the guidelines are. And the garage 30 feet from the lake is about a third. I think that the house at 60 feet from the lake, the addition, I mean, is excessive, is extreme. And I think that the garage setback less than 30 feet is beyond extreme. It's closer than most garages are to a road. This is a lake, and as a member of the Garfield Lake Association, with, I'll just quote, the explicit mission to protect and enhance the quality of the lake, and as a property owner for, as I said, almost 49 years. I think that this variance request is too much. The existing 80-foot setback variance, I think, is enough. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Got one here.
My name's Kevin Becker. I do have 2 letters here that I'd like to read that were not submitted in time to be entered into the packet, if that's all right.
3 minutes?
3 minutes. First one is by Charlie and Linda Clark, the summer residents of Lake Garfield. We would like for you to strongly consider granting our neighbors Terry and Nadean the variances they've requested for their Garfield Lakefoot property. Terry and Nadean have been part-time residents on Lake Garfield for many years and are requesting some variances in order to assist them in becoming full-time residents on the lake. During their many years of living on Lake Garfield, they've been very good stewards of the land of the lake. Terry has assisted on various projects as member of the Garfield Lake Association, as well as assisting in Take a Kid fishing. Second one I'd like to read is from Daryl and Peggy Jerombeck. These are all neighbors of Terry and Nadine's. It says, I am in support of the variances requested by Terry and Nadine Inman. They have already built a cabin on the property and have been proven to be good stewards of the land. They have implemented erosion controls and maintained vegetative barriers along the length of their shoreline. Wooded areas have been managed to attract wildlife and reduce runoff into the lake. The Inmans are high integrity and have pledged to continue these practices once the variances have been granted. The Inmans wish to establish full-time permanent residence at this location. Their variances they request will allow them to do that. They have been designed to meet what they consider to be their needs. There are many residents or properties around Garfield Lake that have created much higher impact to the natural environment and the development of the Inman's purpose. In many cases, variances were granted to allow this development. To deny the Inmans the opportunity to establish a permanent residency on their property would be an injustice when compared to how other property owners on the lake have been allowed to develop their properties. And one thing that I just like that for myself, I'm also a neighbor of Terry and Nadine. I can't, what Daryl said is true. Stewards of the land, outdoors people, they want to keep everything nice, neat, and clean, just like everybody else along the lake there, myself included. I think what they're asking for isn't too much. I mean, 2-stall garage with a little work area in the front, got to have that to work on your stuff, right? And park your cars inside. addition to the house. They can get a little bit more room, mud room, laundry, whatever they were gonna do in that. No extra bedrooms or anything like that, just gonna add some living space is all it is. Personally, I don't think it's too big of a deal, to be honest with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we will close public comment. Question for the board to get some feedback that perhaps tabling might be in order. Anybody change their opinion on that?
I have some questions maybe before I
Okay.
have an opinion.
Okay.
Current house, dimensions, 24 by something, I don't remember.
30? Or
The,
Kevin?
the original cabin?
Yeah,
Yeah, 24 by 32.
does that include the porch, the 6-foot,
Oh, it does not.
does not include the
So it'd be,
porch?
30 by 32,
Okay, 2 bedrooms,
correct.
2 stories?
Story and a half. So
Story and a
full
half.
basement, main level, and a half loft.
Half loft, stairs up to a loft?
Yes.
What is the loft, bedroom, or what is the?
Den,
Den, it was
Den.
converted
Okay.
into a den when we retired.
Okay. Your design goes almost entirely towards the lake. I don't know what the layout of the inside of your house is. Is there any reason why that addition couldn't be more straight north rather than towards the lake, I guess, which is east?
yes, we looked at that, and if we moved further to the east, we'd end up in the driveway, and as you've seen, it's pretty tight on the driveway to begin with.
And so what's the driveway used for?
The driveway,
Yeah.
to drive through there and parking, and,
Do you?
I mean, it's possible we can move it over a couple feet.
I guess I'd have to see it in real time to
Sure.
believe that, based on the drawing anyway, that even if you made it just parallel with the current structure, that you wouldn't encroach that much into the driveway that you couldn't drive a vehicle through there, right?
Yeah, so where the tank for the septic is,
Yeah,
so there's a tree there, and not that the tree matters, but anyways, from that point to the other point, it's, I mean, if you were pulling a trailer through there to turn it around or whatever, it'd be fairly tight to do.
okay. I asked that in the context of, if you're constrained by the fact that you want to have access to that large garage, if that were off the table, would your design for your addition to your house be something that could be more palatable relative to encroachment to the lake? That's the question I'm asking, so.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
I was asking whether you could build not towards the lake, but it's north
Into
to the west side of
into
the
driveway.
home as you look at the lake. And you're saying, well, you can't drive through there. Well, I don't know what you're driving through there with, but if you're concerned about squeezing down the driveway only because you want to get access to a large garage, if you weren't thinking in terms of a large garage, could you build on that side of the house? I'm raising it as a question. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
directing or anything like that.
Yep, there's not the distance there. I don't know the distance right offhand as far as the way it comes around the cabin and the corner there. It would just be, we had looked at that, moving it further that way. There would be room maybe to move over a couple feet and move the whole structure over, a few feet to accommodate that, but no more than, I'm thinking like 3 feet.
Okay. The reason I bring that up, it's not unusual for people who want a very large garage to literally find an acre or some property, in reasonable close proximity to their property to actually store their toys, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, we've talked about that also, and with the, with the harsh winters and stuff like that, we'd really like to
Stay
have
as
her-
long as we can, and so, not having attached garage is one thing that we're already giving up. And we are looking to stay in our location until we're elderly. We love the lake, we've been there many years. The lot size and shape does have a lot of restrictions, and we have looked at a lot of different scenarios and talked about a lot of different scenarios. Doesn't mean we're not open to any suggestions that you may have, we certainly are. But having a garage would be very beneficial to just store our cars even in the winter, and get them out of the elements. And we do, I'm sure when you were out there and you visited, you saw that we have a boat and a pontoon also sitting outside. And part of the reason we have the other structures is because we don't have a garage to store our stuff in, so.
This is Ken. I'm more convinced that I'm in tune with Veronica's idea of tabling it so we can see the property, all the property,
Yep.
without the snow cover.
Yep.
And have a better feel for what options might make sense or not make sense. So,
So one thing we can consider is, as you were interested in getting further than 60 feet back from the lake, if we move that addition over that additional 3 feet, and maybe we can move the deck instead of being 18 feet out. I mean, we would consider going 16 feet to minimize that, and then we'd have, like I said, move that, which where the porch is, we'd move that over as far as we could to the north, as you're requesting.
This is Mike. I'm going to very shortly here make a motion to table, but I do want to state that it is just to get a look at it. It does not in any way indicate on my behalf that this plan will be able to be approved even with a lot view with vegetation. I have concerns with the number of requests, the number of after-the-fact violations for relatively small buildings, and the size of the garage and the closeness to the lake. All of those things play into it, so I just want you to understand this is simply on my behalf of being able to see things in a green condition, non-snow cover condition, but beyond that, I make no commitments to thinking this is a good plan.
agreed.
Yeah, this is Veronica speaking. I just have a comment as well. And I have the same viewpoint and feelings because many of us on the board, seeing a 26 by 50 garage going, 28, 30 feet from the ordinary high water mark is definitely not something that we typically look at. I do understand the desire to construct a garage so that you do have something to place, your vehicles in for the winter. That one is excessive, but my comment here is that according to the staff report, the lot's primary constraint is its lack of depth. So regardless, they're going to need a variance regardless what they decide. Of course, there's lots of different stipulations here, but a variance is going to need to be the route that they take on any type of requested proposed additions or accessory structures. Because the entire lot lies on that slope that drains toward the lake and is steep in many areas. The State of Minnesota Bike Trail, which was formerly that railroad right-of-way, also runs along that rear lot line. So there are some constraints, and also that they can't even meet the ordinary high water mark setback. I agree with Ken as well. We typically, when you're in the within the setback, we generally like to see proposals that are more beside, not going lakeward. That's, that is
Yep.
definitely not the shoreline management ordinances, and the harmony for that. So we definitely don't always foresee that. Again, because of snow coverage, we can't see any of the green that you have out there. We can't give any mitigation as to what we would like if, you know, if something was to go forward. So I am in agreement that at least we table it for, to see everything in its entirety when the snow melts. I don't think that any amendments, if amendments were made, that would have to be with guidance from ESO, because the views and such have to be what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, for lot views. If you change anything on your application, then it may have to be renoticed, so.
This is Mike. I'll make a motion to table until such time that we can view the lot in non-snow conditions.
This is Veronica. I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike to table and a second by Veronica. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
This is Veronica. I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
It's Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Mark, I vote aye. Motion is tabled.
Thank you.
Thank you.
wonder if he could get permission from the, R to move his tank there. And then he'd have room maybe to put a side-by-side garage or something there. Doing that.
To give that permission.
Yeah, he'd have to get permission to move it out into the easement.
But who would grant that permission?
DNR.
DNR would?
Yeah, that's a trail. The DNR has that trail.
We can ask Eric that if you need.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can allow him to go up to the edge of the easement, but we can't approve the easement because he's the approval, and I'm sure the DNR has that.
Okay, okay, the next, case we have here is an administrative decision appeal by Shane Ferrozzo, part of Government Lot 4, Section 27, Township 141, Range 34, Lake Emmett Township on Big Sand Lake, a recreational development lake, parcel 16.27.04031. Applicant is appealing an administrative decision on the interpretation of section 901.2 east of the Shoreline Management Ordinance. It's my understanding that we don't have the applicant here. Is that correct, Eric?
He indicated that he would not be present, but I have not met him in person, so I couldn't place a face to it.
Don't have Mr. Ferrozzo present here, and, okay. So, this administrative appeal is somewhat new to me, so I've been given some direction here on how to address this appeal. We have, as a board, seen his statement that he is provided us as to his beliefs on why he should be given this appeal. We can't question him since he's not here. I'm going to skip down, Eric, to number 3 and ask you if you would help me out by giving us an opportunity, well, to explain how you made the decision, and then if we have any questions about it.
Sure. Eric speaking. So first, I would direct the board to the staff report, which has a very detailed explanation of the background of the matter as well as the department's interpretation, but I can summarize that for you as well.
Okay.
The applicant approached me through an email asking for a response as to the number of access paths that he would be allowed on this property. And so I responded to him that based on the property's lot width at the ordinary high water mark, which is the determinant in the ordinance in the cited section as to how many access paths they can have, since this lot is just shy of 300 feet wide per a DNR survey. The DNR formerly owned the property prior to the applicant. The applicant had a survey performed that showed a slightly different width at the ordinary high water mark of 306 feet. Regardless of which width is used, the ordinance allows one access path for every 200 feet of lot width at the ordinary high water mark. The reason for that is multiple. One is that is the maximum lot width, or the minimum lot width, I should say, for a natural environment classified riparian lot, which is 200 feet. It also affords then and covers the 150-foot minimum width for a lot on a recreational development lake. And it would also allow a access path on a non-conforming lot that is non-conforming in terms of its lot width. When you exceed 200 feet of lot width, then you are allowed an additional path. So for every 200 feet essentially of width that you have, you're allowed an additional access path. Given that this lot has roughly 300 feet, that would allow it one access path, not two. The applicant feels that it should be entitled to two. To take the applicant's reasoning and apply it to the extreme, which is sometimes beneficial in evaluating whether something makes sense. His line of reasoning, if you had a 201-foot wide lot, would allow that to have two access paths, which would be out of line with the intent of that provision of the ordinance. So staff communicated to him that his lot would be allowed one access path and that he had the right to appeal that decision to the Board of Adjustment as he's done through this application. In the supplemental materials that the applicant provided that are up on the screen, he alluded to the fact that he would really like to be able to have a 12-foot wide clearing in the vegetation. There's a large wetland complex near shore on this lot through which he wants to clear his access path. And so what he's really looking for is a 12-foot wide single path on which he wants to run, it states, an amphibious vehicle in the wintertime to gain access to the lake, presumably to get a fish house out on the lake. So that's his intent, and that is, even if he was allowed two access paths, the ordinance would not allow those to be placed right next to one another to create a 12-foot wide path. That would be contrary to the 6-foot maximum width provision in the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Is there also, I guess I was a little bit confused on what would be allowed even in the 6-foot path if he were to just go with that as far as how it could be constructed. And I guess I'm referring to where in the background information on your staff report said boardwalks of the SMO would allow a 4-foot wide boardwalk that is sufficiently elevated above the wetlands so existing vegetation beneath the boardwalk is not harmed by its installation. Is that what he was asking for? I mean, to build if he was allowed? Or is that what he's required if he were to build something of that nature?
Eric speaking, what the ordinance would allow with a vegetative alteration permit, a 6-foot wide clearing in the vegetation in the wetland to be created. Within that 6-foot wide cleared strip, you're allowed to place a 4-foot maximum width boardwalk as the means for gaining ingress and egress to the lake from the lot. So the 6-foot width just gives you a little bit of elbow
Right.
room when.
And the actual, the 4-foot is the actual structure that you could build.
Correct.
But to drive something, as I'm hearing that he's asking for, was he asking to fill in, or we didn't have an opportunity that day at Lot Views to really walk down there and look. You couldn't see anything anyway, but it seemed to me that I wasn't understanding whether he was asking to conform to this with two side-by-side but building this, or was he looking to do something different than this, or do you not know the answer to that?
Eric speaking, I do not know exactly what is proposed other than what we have in his written material that he submitted, which now indicates a 12-foot single width of cleared vegetation in which he wants to run this amphibious vehicle. Doesn't indicate anything about any hard surface that he is saying he wants to do that in frozen ground conditions.
Right.
So then I take that as meaning there wouldn't be any boardwalk or any type of filled path or filled road, but there have been applications that he's made to the Soil and Water Conservation District through the Wetland Conservation Act, proposing various plans that have included field paths, seeking access to the lake that way that have been denied. He's currently got a pending application with the SWCD for a revision that would, I think, involve a fill path partly through the wetland to kind of a high knob, an island, so to speak, along the east property line, and from there, he's then proposing not having a fill path and instead having this cleared vegetative area in which to drive this amphibious vehicle, which I don't know exactly what that would be.
Okay.
So that's the current plan as best I know, but the proposals have been modifying and morphing over the last several months that he's been in contact with our office.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Ken.
And say that our only action here is to either support or change the decision made by Environmental Services. Has nothing to do with whether he can fill in a wetland or do anything like that. Just, that's background to what he's kind of thinking, and so on.
Okay.
And with that, let me try some facts. He's been denied by the Soil and Water Conservation District for some of his thoughts already. DNR Waters people have told him that they're supportive of this interpretation. The Environmental Services interpretation, this is consistent with what they've interpreted it to mean in the past with regards to it, and legal counsel concurs with them.
Yeah.
With all of that information, it seems to me pretty straightforward that we would be supportive of the decision made by Environmental Services.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ken. We're gonna open for public comment. And seeing none, we will close public comment. Any other address here?
This is Mike. I believe the interpretation by Environmental Services of this particular case is the correct interpretation and consistent with how it's been interpreted all along. I don't think I believe the interpretation is correct, and I'd be in favor of denying this request.
This is Veronica speaking. I concur with you both. I had the same notes that the applicant was presented with the information as to why the application was denied. ESO gave specific clarification and interpretation to the language in the Shoreline Management Ordinance, and also confirmed the interpretation with the legal counsel. All the information was provided to the applicant adequately, sufficiently, and substantiates its decision.
Okay, are we ready? Anybody ready to make a motion? And while I'm asking that, Eric, the questions that we develop as findings, we don't have to strictly use the traditional findings of fact questions. Is that correct, Eric?
Eric speaking, correct. So the variance findings of facts are not used in these administrative decision appeals. Rather, the board would simply, for its findings, list the reasons supporting the board's motion. And that can be 1, it could be 6, it's whatever number of reasons the board would have for supporting its decision.
Okay, thank you. Anybody ready to make that motion?
This is Mike. I'll make the motion to affirm the staff's, the Environmental Services interpretation of this rule, and based on, this is consistent with how this rule has been interpreted all along since the ordinance, this portion of the ordinance has been in effect.
Okay, okay, and this is Mark, and I'll second that motion by Mike. So I'm gonna take a vote. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
This is Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Mark, I vote aye. Motion is passed. Next we have variance application 2-V-23 by Lowell Raditz, part of Government Lot 4, Section 4, Township 143, Range 33, Hendrickson Township, Parcel 12.04.00700. Applicant is requesting a variance from Section 52.2 of the sign ordinance to enlarge the sign area of a non-conforming sign. We have the applicants here. They take a seat and there's their name and address, permanent address, and what you're seeking.
Hi, my name is Scott Kwame. I'm with Indigo Signs. Sally is here. Sally is the daughter of the applicant Lowell Raditz. And we're here requesting a variance basically to make the sign a little bit bigger than what's at the property. When Lowell Raditz and when Sally approached Indigo Signs requesting a quote and a proposal to upgrade their signage at this location, we provided a quote that fit with what our typical sign requirements would be. Along a 60-mile-an-hour highway, we would start with something that was at least 24 inches high. Typically 24 to 30-inch digits and letters are common, expected, and according to all of our documentation and charts and everything, that's what is expected to provide drivers along that speed of a highway opportunity to recognize and make a decision to change what they're driving, to make a turn or make a stop or anything like that. Once we had made our proposal to the Raditzes, then we learned of the Hubbard County ruling that this apparently fell into a category of legal but non-conforming. And so that brings us here today. We're looking to increase the size of the signs on each end of the canopies over the fuel pumps by about 20%. We believe this is a reasonable request. The rationale was detailed in the documents that we provided, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Hey, any questions by the board? I can tell you personally, just being out there, I really have no problem with this signage, so I don't really have any questions for you myself. I'm not sure my board members here do or not, but I know I'm in favor of this variance. I can, just by what I'm seeing out there and what you're proposing.
This is Mike. I'm in agreement with you, Mark. I'm in favor of this. It makes sense seeing it in person and having driven by this more times than I can count. I think this is a good proposal for the situation, and I'd be in favor of it.
And this is Veronica. I agree with them as well. The proposed increase is negligible in the small percent of the current sign area. The sign area increase will be so minor that it's going to barely even be noticeable. So as far as our limitations, so I agree. I think this is moving forward, and I support the application.
Any questions, Ken?
No, it's pretty obvious. It's a good thing that could be done.
Okay, I'm gonna just quick open for public comment. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'm gonna make the motion to approve this application and accept the staff's findings of facts.
This is Mike. I'll second that.
Okay, I made the motion and Mike seconded it. We're gonna take a vote. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
Veronica, I vote aye.
Mike?
This is Mike, I vote aye.
This is Mark, I vote aye. Your motion's passed. You're receiving a letter from ESO. You're good to go.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time tonight, and I'd like to,
Be happy to see it.
thanks. Also like to extend our thanks to Eric for the help that we had in preparing our application and explaining things for us. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you very much for the approval, the visit, and we hope to see you out there again.
Thank you. Okay, next we have variance application 3-V-23 by BPIL LLC Camp Kamaji. All of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter, Government Lot 2, and part of Government Lot 1, Section 2, Township 145, Range 32, and part of Government Lot 9, Section 1, Township 145, Range 32, Farden Township on Wolf Lake, a recreational development lake, parcels 07.02.00100 and 07.01.02400. Applicant is requesting an after-the-fact variance from section 701 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance to enlarge 2 cabins and add a shower that are part of a non-conforming use. Section 701 states that additions to a structure devoted in whole or part to a non-conforming use are prohibited, as is the creation of a new structure where none previously existed. So we have the applicant. Could you give us your name and address and tell us what you're wanting to do?
Good evening. I'm Jason Nelson. I'm one of the owners of Camp Kamaji. I own it with my wife, Catherine Nelson, and that is in Cass Lake. It's 32054 Wolf Lake Road. And we are requesting to expand, the first 2 projects are 2 identical buildings that are staff cabins, just requesting to double the size of them to add bedrooms in the back, but not increasing the amount of people that would be staying in those cabins. This is for our older staff, our leadership staff, so that they have just privacy while they're at camp during the summer. What we've seen over the last couple of years of the pandemic, having older staff in camp, it's harder to staff right now, and having older staff that can come and maybe like they bring a spouse or a younger child that's not old enough for camp. This is like an incentive for them to come to camp during the summer. And then the third project is building a new shower house with 6 showers. We already have 2 shower houses, 2 wash houses right now that have sinks, toilets, and showers in them. And so we would like to make this a third one just as another option available for our campers.
Okay. Okay. Any
Oh, I'm
questions?
sorry. And then one other thing with the 2 staff cabins, we thought that those were past the 1,000-foot mark from the high water mark, which is why we started this construction on those.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Excuse me.
I guess this is Veronica speaking. I guess the first question to ask would be, why didn't you seek permits prior to construction?
For the 2 staff cabins, we thought it was past the 1,000-foot high mark. So yeah, so we just thought that it's 890 feet from the high water mark, which is why we started it, and that's my fault.
So you just thought you were under the impression that you were outside of shoreland, that you didn't need to?
Yeah,
and-
the 1,000-foot mark. So I think there's no permit needed for past the 1,000-foot mark. Is that correct?
Correct. When you're outside of shoreland, then
yeah.
there's no permitting
Yeah.
required.
And that's my fault.
Okay. Anybody else?
In the staff report, there's a suggestion that a flow meter be required to install to monitor the actual water usage. I believe that's for the new shower house. Reason behind that?
So that we can have more accurate information to go on in the future when they look at further expansion, then we can have a better sense of actual usage versus design usage. When you've got multiple shower houses, wash areas, you don't necessarily know, it's not going to always be consistent that X number, or using this one consistently, X number, or using that one consistently, and so it just gives us a better idea of use, and so we and they can also plan the most effectively.
This would be metered just for the new shower house? Okay, so that should be a condition we should consider for the approval. Okay.
And we're open to adding that as well.
Okay, I think while we're sitting here, I'll open for public comment. And seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any other, I personally don't have any other questions regarding this. Anybody else?
This is Veronica speaking. I don't really have any other questions, but before we move forward, I just want to be sure for clarification purposes for the applicant that anytime you want to build anything on that property, whether it meets the setback or not, because it's non-conforming, you have to seek a variance first.
That's my fault again, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Veronica.
Too easy.
And
So
noted.
it shall be.
Noted, I will do that in the future, I promise.
Okay, anybody ready to make a motion here?
I'll make one. I'll make a motion that we accept this after-the-fact variance request and the finding of fact from the environmental staff with two conditions, that the Mississippi Headwaters Board approve the changes, and that a flow meter be installed to monitor water flow from the new shower house.
This is Mark, I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion by Ken to approve with the conditions mentioned and a second by me. We'll take a vote. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
This is Veronica, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
This is Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Mark, I vote aye. Your motion passed with the conditions, and you can, any further questions, you can talk to Eric at ESO.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Okay, next on the agenda is variance application 4-V-23 by Skylar Atkinson, Lot 1, Block 1, Shady Acres, Section 28, Township 140, Range 34, Henrietta Township, on Long Lake, a recreational development lake, parcel 13.59.00100. Applicant is requesting the following variances from section 502.2 and 801.2 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance and Article 5, sections 1.01 and 2.01B of the Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance, Part 1, and after-the-fact variance for a subsurface sewage treatment system drain field that doesn't comply with the 10-foot rear lot line setback as it extends over said line, and Part 2, a variance from the 20-foot house to drain field setback. We have the applicants here. State your name and address for the record, what you want.
Rick Amsbury, and I'm an agent for Skylar Atkinson.
Your address?
15597 County Road 18.
Okay, and you want to give us a description here of what you're looking to do and what you want?
Well, one of the variances is for an existing drain field that was put in before Skylar bought it. And unbeknownst to him, and I think obviously the owner who put it in, or had it put in, did not know that it was in the township road right-of-way. We did go to the township, and the township, I think you have a copy of what their minutes said. Gaden made a motion, allowed existing septic system to remain as it is, no expansion into the road right-of-way, and no pipes to extend above ground level on the property. And it passed. So they They understand that it's in their road right-of-way, and they're willing to have it stay there. And then the other one is because of limited area, to expand the usage to 15 people. We had to expand into an area. I'll have Al explain it.
No. Please give us your name and address for the record also.
Al Winterberger Inspections, owner, operator, 24685 Washington Avenue, Osage, Minnesota.
Okay.
And I'm here because I was kind of involved in consulting with the septic plan for the upgrade.
Okay.
And as part of the work I did notice that the drain field was installed in a road right-of-way, which was missed during the original install.
Okay.
I'm privy to that information, but I don't think that's pertinent right now. But so the drain field that I located, I contacted the owner and said, let's get a survey done. We did a survey. So that located the existing system and what would be required to make the addition to it also. As part of the work, you can see that only 4.9 feet of the original system actually was outside the right-of-way, but I'm adding 10 feet further lakeward, which is totally out of the right-of-way. The expansion, setback to the lake would be 173 feet from the lake, but I can only make 19 feet from the house. So that would be part of the variance, would be asking for a 19-foot setback from the 20.
Okay. Any questions?
This is Veronica speaking. Mr. Chair, are we addressing part 1 and part 2 separately so we can do
Yes.
one at a time?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Part 1 is addressing the existing system, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question. What % of the existing system is in the right-of-way? The majority of it?
The majority of it, yes.
Okay.
A little over 10 of the 15 feet.
Okay.
Yep.
Why didn't I find that picture someplace? Okay.
Right in front of you.
The house currently has 3 bedrooms?
The house currently, as I understand it, was 3 bedrooms when it was built.
Okay. Oh, I guess I'm into the second part here now. Forget it. We were not.
Stick to the first here.
Yeah, sorry.
Other questions regarding are we gonna treat these separately? So I'll do public comment on both. Okay, so we're gonna open for public comment. Seeing none, we're gonna close public comment. Any further questions on this
The
existing drain?
current one, does the current one violate the setback? No. Right?
It violates the rear lot line setback, which goes into the
There,
right-of-way.
but not side lot, okay. Okay.
This is Veronica speaking. I agree with the township approving the existing drain field to remain in the road right-of-way. I did note that staff has suggested a condition that the variance to extend over the rear lot line only applies to this drain field in its current composition and dimensions, so that any future drain field must comply with setbacks or go through any separate variance process. So it kind of, with that condition, that, I guess that has to do with a little bit of part 2, but
Say that again, Veronica.
does that condition kind of have to deal with part 2 if we have to deal with both?
Eric speaking, yeah, or you could adjust it if you're amenable to part 2.
Well, this is Veronica speaking. I'm not in favor of part two, so for part one, for me, I would have that condition.
This is Mike, I'm in agreement.
Yep.
And,
Go ahead, Veronica.
and I was just reviewing the add-ons for the findings of fact as well, and I did find a typo error that we'll need to address when it comes to that point. Just the date.
Okay. Anybody ready to make a motion on part one?
This is Veronica. I can make a motion to approve the after-the-fact variance request to retain the existing septic in the road right-of-way. I will accept the staff's recommendations on the findings of facts and the add-ons with the correction to the year in answer number 6 on the add-ons. Should say the drain field was partially been in the road right-of-way since it was installed in 2002.
Put your condition on it.
Oh, and with the condition that the variance to extend over the rear lot line only applies to this drain field in its current composition and dimensions, so that any future drain field must comply with the setbacks.
I can't understand what she said.
Want me to repeat it?
Yeah.
The condition that the variance to extend over the rear lot line only applies to this drain field in its current composition and dimensions, so that any future drain field must comply with setbacks.
Okay.
This is Mike, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on part one by Veronica to approve with condition mentioned, and a second by Mike. Ken, how do you vote?
Aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
Veronica, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
This is Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Mark, I vote aye, so part one is approved. So we'll move on to part two. I'm just gonna ask one question of, well, it's probably self-explanatory. You need 1 foot, I mean, you're off by 1 foot to make that 20-foot setback
Correct.
for this part of your request. If he had, Eric, if he had the 20 feet, we wouldn't be addressing this? Is that correct? Okay. Okay, anybody have any comments about this part two?
The house currently has 3 bedrooms,
Correct.
and you want to expand now to potentially have 15 people there?
Correct.
That's 5 people per bedroom? Does that make sense?
Well, there were rooms available to make bedrooms out of.
This, oh, are you finished, Ken?
I'm thinking, but go ahead.
Okay, this is Veronica speaking. I guess my biggest concern is this house was originally built not for short-term rental, and expanding to occupy 15 people does have a little bit of concerns for me. You know, back when the house was built, it's, you know, didn't have, this request is to maximize the occupancy to increase 150% from 6 to 15. And I do have some issues with that. It would also use up the extremely limited usable space available for any future drain field replacement. As Tim would always say, it's not a matter of if it's going to fail, it's when it's going to fail. So that, again, I don't want to utilize, and that's just a concern for me. I don't know how everyone else feels.
Could I make a comment about?
Yeah.
This is Al speaking. That's why in incorporating the new design plan, dual alternating effluent pumps are going to be required along with the event counters to accurately measure the flows coming out of the structure. And due to the size constraints and limitations, he was actually had to drop the number of people by 1, I think, right?
Yes.
From his original His original desire to have 16 people, I believe,
Yeah.
wouldn't work. So, I got him to drop one at least,
Okay,
But
this is
I-
Veronica speaking. So then my question for you would be, let's say the applicant wanted 12 people instead. You would be able to make a drain field fit and meet setback for 12 people?
Possibly.
This is Mike, just to make sure I understand, and this is the only alternative site on this lot? Is that correct, a correct statement?
Without going lakeward of the structure and getting within the setback.
Thank you.
This is Rick, and the house is a three-story, it's a large home. There are a lot of rooms and a lot of bathrooms and et cetera. So it's people aren't crowded in it at 15.
This is Mike. I realize it's a large house. That's not my concern. My concern is the variance request in front of us to utilize the alternative site solely to expand the use of this property. It takes away the alternative site, and it increases the occupancy from what it was intended, at least when it was built. Certainly, the builder would have had the opportunity to have a larger drain field. Many different variables could have gone into play there, but this is a 100, it's going from 5 to 15, or 6 to 15, is that correct?
Correct.
That's a huge increase, and it also limits all future possibilities when this system fails.
This is Veronica speaking. I agree with Mike. I had the same similar comments. I guess my situation is, as a board, it appears that you might have alternative options that you can build by permit if you meet all the setbacks. Is that correct? And that granting this variance is really unnecessary. If you can make a smaller system and still increase your capacities somewhat for your occupancy, a variance really isn't needed.
I don't think so.
Did I do public comment?
Not on the second part.
Maybe not.
Okay, while we think about that, I'm going to open for public comment. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. I guess I kind of agree with you, Veronica and Mike, about that, those points brought up. This house was originally built as a single-family home, and obviously, now we're in a different scenario, but I guess in my mind, I can't see going forward with this, approving this for this usage, when you might have options if you would alter your design. So I'm not myself supportive of the application for this.
Mr. Chair, may I just
Yep.
read findings of facts 3 and 5 just for supporting statements? Number 3 would be, is the need for the variance due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the current or prior property owners. The need for the variance has nothing to do with the property. This is an attempt by the landowner to maximize income for a short-term rental use of the property by increasing the occupancy. The landowner is trying to fit more people into the house than might be usual if the property was simply owned as a vacation home or a home by the owner. Number 5, again, does the stated practical difficulty involve more than just economics considerations? The entire rationale for this particular variance is economic considerations by increasing the short-term rental licenses allowed maximum occupancy to 9 more people than the current STR license allows. So the sole purpose of this variance is economic return. So I cannot answer yes to either of those questions.
Okay, anybody ready to make a motion?
This is Mike. I'll make a motion to deny and accept the staff findings of fact.
And this is Mark, I'll second that. So we have a motion by Mike to deny, and a second by myself. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
This is Veronica, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike, I vote aye.
This is Mark, I vote aye. Motion is denied. Thank you.
Right?
It's back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
We get rid of 2 people.
With the condition
Yep.
on
I'm in favor.
the, you'd say
I'm-
they'd have to redo that whole.
I'm the handyman.
Well, best of luck for the
Thank you.
future.
What you looking for?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
They saved the best for last.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, any miscellaneous, Eric?
Couple items. The first would be just a reminder for those that are attending the land use training this this week, Friday on the 3rd. We'll leave the courthouse here at 7:40. It's down in Staples. Kind of a new location for the venue, closer to us, which is nice, and starts at 9, ends at 3, so we should be back earlier than what we typically are when it's been held in St. Cloud. And the other item would be just relative to the March meeting agenda. Right now, we have one application that was submitted by the deadline, which was today. It's currently got a couple items that are missing, so it's in the incomplete state. But the applicant I've notified them of what those items are, and they've indicated that they're gonna make work of getting those submitted, so we'll see if they can do that soon enough for us to be able to have that in time for when we need to have the agenda sent to the newspaper. So potentially one minor subdivision application for the March meeting, and then I guess I could solicit your feedback now on the Inman application. We can certainly put that on the March agenda as a placeholder, so if spring comes early, you could see it. Otherwise, the April meeting agenda is going to be when we absolutely must take action on it to stay within the 120 days of the application date. If you'd rather I just wait until April to put it on the agenda, I can do that too.
Well, that would be great if there's the possibility of this incomplete application not, panning out, then I would prefer to wait till April.
I think so.
I think I would too.
That's
just
more
not-
realistic.
More
If we're
realistic
gonna
as
see-
far as historically
Yeah.
what we have on the ground in March. It's a roll of the dice at
Yes.
best, but
Right.
I'd prefer April myself.
Yep.
Okay.
For the one we delayed today.
Yes, yep. Okay.
That's all that I have.
Okay, knowing that, anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Make motion to adjourn. This is Mike.
This is Mark, I'll second that. Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Veronica, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mike?
It's Mike. I vote aye.
This is Mark, I vote aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Good job, Mark.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for helping me.